Well, new legislation came into effect in Ontario last week that aims to implement a framework to regulate procurement within the public sector. Now, this during an ongoing tariff war with the United States. According to the provincial government, the Buy Ontario Act makes it imperative that businesses and workers build a more competitive, resilient and self-reliant economy. Here for more is Minister of Public and Business Service Delivery of Ontario, Stephen Crawford. Minister, appreciate the time this morning. We know your Premier, Doug Ford, has been a big proponent of Buy Ontario, of putting Ontario first and foremost here. So how is this act going to help Ontario business and Ontario's economy?
Yeah, thanks. It's great to be here this morning, and it's really focused on helping Ontario businesses. We know that a lot of our economy is dependent on building infrastructure in the province of Ontario. We have a $220 billion infrastructure investment over the next 10 years, and we want to see those investment dollars staying right here in Ontario and contributing enormously to the infrastructure investments.
Does the province, do we have the business and industrial base to produce what's necessary to fill all of that?
Yeah, I mean, our focus is Ontario first. So where we can, we want to be investing in Ontario businesses. There are occasions where, unfortunately, we can't, and we'll go out to tender around the world. But we're going to put a focus on investing with Ontario businesses.
How does this change the sort of tendering process when it comes to procurement, et cetera? I mean, if you're just sort of saying it's got to kind of be Ontario, does that limit the opportunity for competitive bids from elsewhere and other environments, and how does that impact things?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. There's a sign when you come into Ontario, when you come in from Manitoba or Quebec or New York, it says open for business. So let me be very clear. Ontario is open for business. We want to encourage foreign investment in our province. However, when we are spending our money in Ontario for big infrastructure projects or even desks or hospital beds, where we can, we want to buy Ontario companies first. So every company is able to bid on these projects. We want to encourage that, but we are going to place more of an emphasis on supporting Ontario businesses where we can.
How does this change in terms of, and we haven't got a completely, internal trade barriers fallen down, within the country, as has been talked a lot about. But how would that change things if suddenly Quebec, Manitoba, British Columbia, Alberta could start bidding in here, but we've got this Ontario first policy? How would that change things? Because free trade within the country has been so much debated and discussed in the last 6 to 10 months.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Free trade within Canada has been debated. We've put forward Free Trade Within Canada Act here in Ontario, so we've been a leader in encouraging free trade amongst the provinces and of course, labor mobility, which will certainly help accelerate people in certain professions across the country. It's not going to impact that in any way, shape, or form. As I said, we are Ontario first, but we're going to be able to support other provinces as well, but it's Ontario first.
How will this be reported or sort of covered in terms of, if I'm an employee and I see, we're not using Ontario, is there like I don't want to say a snitch line, but a way of sort of letting the government know, hey, it seems like we've gone outside of the bounds here? Yeah,
no, the government of Ontario is very serious about this in supporting Ontario businesses. We know the impact it can have on our local economy. Just a prime example is when Premier Ford made the decision to pull American alcohol off the shelves a year ago, we've seen Canadian, Ontario wineries surge in sales almost 70%. So enormous increase. So people are stepping up. So there will be compliance from my ministry. We will be on this, and we'll be watching to ensure there is compliance with the legislation.
And Minister, in terms of how businesses sort of get involved, is it just in the bidding or proposal process, or can they register now to be sort of part of this Ontario First?
Yeah, it's in the bidding process. So any sort of projects that the Ontario government puts out or the broader public sector, because that's key. This legislation is not just the Ontario government. It's going beyond. It's looking at colleges, universities, hospitals, and eventually municipalities will be on board with it. And the process will allow anybody to bid. But as I mentioned, we will put more of an emphasis in supporting Ontario businesses when we look at the procurement process.
And how big of an impact do you think this could have on our economy when you consider what we're dealing with just with the challenges south of the border, in the maybe next 3 to 4 years, who knows?
This can have a very big effect. And we see this in the United States. I mean, many states have this Buy America policy, so it can have an enormous impact. When we're talking a $220 billion infrastructure project over the next 10 years from the Ontario government alone, that is enormous. And it goes beyond that, as I say, to municipalities, colleges, universities. So this can have a real impact. And by doing this, we're going to be able to support our neighbors, our friends, and our local businesses, and it's going to put Ontario in a better position.
Okay. Minister Crawford, appreciate the time this morning. Good to hear from this. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks
for the time. Thank you.